The most easiest thing to make is money.
Tell me how to make more.
Do you understand who you need to become so money can follow you? God designed this life for us to attract, not for us to chase. Many people are chasing what they should be attracting, and you only attract when you become.
13th February 2024, that was your last Facebook post.
As per this period we're recording this is exactly 1 year and a few weeks of social media. I didn't even see that coming, It would have been different if I planned it. I just disappeared but there was no plan.
Joybert, when you take breaks off social media, what are you doing?
It was a lot of. Do you know that there are so many rich families that they don't have Netflix in their houses? And they don't watch CNN and BBC because they believe that it's a media that they use to program the middle class and the lower class. So they don't watch it so they can program themselves to rule the middle class and the lower class. The school of the poor, they think of doing the work. A rich kid who has been taught by the dad would think of, how can I own it?
Personal brand seems to be the thing that's taking over in 2025.
One of the easiest ways to measure is what percentage of that population can you always convert into buying anything of value that you sell. You see, there are people that call themselves influencers, but they're just popular people.
How's marriage life?
Marriage life is good. It has been a lot of a learning curve for me, hopefully for my wife too. One of the best gifts that God gave me was to send her into my life. Dear Arrey.
What's up, my smart friend? Before you jump straight into this episode, there are 3 boxes I'd love you to check while you watch. First things first, please make sure to hit the subscribe or the follow button down below, because the more we grow, the bigger guests we can approach on this platform and the more value we can bring to you here on the podcast. Second, a lot of friends always reach out to me and say something like, "Hey, Arrey, I really did enjoy this particular segment of this episode." What I want you to do, if you get to a point like that, pick up your phone and send this to a friend and say, "Hey, check this out, between 10 to 15 minutes. There's something very important I'd love you to see." Also, you're going to find the link to join our 21,000 Smart Friends on email, where you're going to receive an email from me once every week. Plus, down below, you're also going to see links to connect with the guest. So please, make sure you tick those 3 boxes and enjoy the rest of this episode. 13th February 2024, that was your last Facebook post of you stopping from Facebook.
I just disappeared. I didn't even see that coming, It would have been different if I planned it, but there was no plan. It was just something that happened abruptly. And before that particular post, I have been on a particular journey 6 months before that particular season, where I have been redefining what I have done in the last, let's say, 12 years of my career, right?
Yeah.
So I've been in a season where, like they always say, the first 30 years of your life, you experiment, and the next 30 years, you begin to build.
Stabilize.
The last 30 years, you begin to consolidate, right? I was in that phase where I've done a couple of things here and there, different countries, but I had to enter that stage where I need to build what will last. Like I always say, if you add 30 years to your current age now, that's your real age. What you decide to do with the next 30 years of your life, especially if you're between 40 and downward, is critical as far as your destiny on earth is concerned. So I entered that season where I had to redefine a lot of things, from strategy, from methods. And I also entered the season where I have been recognized as a thought leader across a few things here and there, across different countries. But I also entered the season where I had to create proprietary frameworks, coaching frameworks, consulting frameworks, training methods. As I said, because in the last 12 years, I have trained and spoken and consulted across 20 countries, 4 continents. But many of those were also dependent on the ideas of other people and all of that, but because I didn't have my own experience. But after the experience and having the privilege by God's grace to be in a spot where some institutions, some people can look up to me and recognize as a thought leader and get my thoughts about some things in their companies and all of that, I began to have that calling that there is a higher purpose, there is something bigger that I need to create, I need to form, I need to process and to synthesize. And when I took off some time from Facebook and social media as a whole, I noticed that my perspective was different. I had so much time. There's something I now call information diet. So I was able to understand how the power of controlling what you consume plays a big role in the quality of your mental processing and what you create, behind the scenes. And apart from that, I had to also spend time with family and all of that. But that was a major reason that I had to reframe a lot of things, because I was in that season of rebuilding and customizing some things that I am no longer guessworking. I am not assuming. I am very precise now. at what I'm doing and what I'm building and what I'm contributing in the industry as a stakeholder. Yeah.
As much as you can share, talk to me about some of the frameworks you talk about. If you put a bit more context to it for someone like me listening who really does not have an idea what you're talking about
Yeah.
you doing stuff, but also not having your own framework and then having to build from that. What would some of those frameworks look like in practical?
Now, for example, you see, when you look at the human capital development industry in Africa,
Mm,
we have not really developed our own ideas, our own strategies, our own frameworks, because, if you look at the research R&D budget of various continents, Africa has the least. We get to have the data and the experiences, but we don't have the tools that we can use to begin to analyze or to synthesize and ask questions to other thought leaders. And there are more institutions in Europe and in America that have spent money in research about Africa,
mhm,
that Africa is not spending the research about, Africa, right? To be able to put it in a way that people can understand. One of the things that I spent a lot of time designing is around how to build attention, package attention, monetize it, and distribute it. So
mm,
I've been able to create like 7 frameworks around this, focusing on the African continent. How can an African at any level be able to build attention that they can package that attention? So there's a framework for building attention, not popularity, not going viral. I always say that popularity is for babes, influence is for the mature.
mm.
So there's a way to build that attention that makes sense to you as a thought leader in the corporate world or as a business owner in entrepreneurship. Then there's a part of packaging that attention in a way that if I present to you, Arrey, you understand what I am presenting to you, because value that is not understood is either overlooked or undervalued, and that will cost you money. Then there is, attention packaging or monetization, because you can package, you need to learn how to monetize and cash out of it. Why? Because that is where we are going right now. I'm sure we all read the same books on economics in Cameroon and other African countries. We all read Adam Smith, right? And he spoke about the factors of production: land, labor, capital, and the entrepreneur. And I keep saying that if you bring Adam Smith in this dispensation, he will edit the book and either add influence or add social media as one of the core major factors of production. So being able to see how you can build that attention, package it, monetize it, and distribute it, and stay in the game is a very important framework for us as the people in Africa. And of course, I'm using it right now, already doing my private coachings and consultations. But one of the things I'm going to do when I come back on social media is do a lot of master classes and practical workshops, and probably do a couple of talks across different African countries in that particular area. One of the reasons also was that I have spoken, but when I read my own impact of what I trained and spoke across, let's say, the 15 African countries I've traveled to speak and train, I don't think the kind of impact that I wanted my words and solutions to create in the lives of people was potent enough and powerful enough. So I had to start questioning the quality of my content, how it was delivered, the methods, and of course, how it can really impact people and move somebody, be a bridge from point A to point B. So there are other frameworks that focuses around, purpose, focuses around passion, focuses on how you can learn as an African in a way that you can be able to create something valuable with what you're learning. So there are some key things that we have been able to develop around that with the research team that I was able to put together to bring all of this together. So what I'm saying is, I used to train and consult and speak from others' material and perspective, but now it's from research backed, experimented, tested in small groups before it goes out to the public.
Right now, we're recording this podcast. Both of us are off social media, practically getting back in the game. And one of the questions I always get is people ask me, Array, when you take breaks off social media, what does your day to day look like? And I want to throw that back to you. Joybert, when you take breaks off social media, if I were to look at your routine for the day, or if I were to look at your to-do list, what are you doing?
As per this period we're recording this, is exactly 1 year and a few weeks of social media. It's one of the best things I've ever done in my life, first of all.
I agree.
Like, sincerely, one of the best things I have ever done in my life. And my time was full of a lot of studies. Very minimal travel, very minimal travel. If the reason for travel is not too profound, in the last 1 year, I don't think I've taken 2 flights. As somebody who used to travel a couple of countries every year and several flights every year, in this last 1 year exactly, I have not taken 2 flights. I think it's just one flight. We had to just move one city and just change location per se. But my day-to-day focused a lot on studying, one book after another, one book after another. Also refining my own books. I have perfected my books that will be coming out. About 4 books will be coming out too. And that was also perfected within that particular season. There are other new concepts of books that I have in store that will also be published later in the year. So it was a lot of research, talking with other experts and researchers, reading more books, synthesizing, processing, testing concepts here and there, and giving to a small group of people to experiment what I'm creating and get feedback. And so that was all I was really doing in this particular period, so that what we are bringing out to the public is not what we are assuming, but what we have really done proper research. I read a lot of scientific backed research from Yale University, other universities around the world to back up what I am trying to create and produce. At the same time, now synthesizing it and being able to break it down in a way that if I present it, a 6-year-old can understand, a university student can understand. So a lot of work went into that particular dimensions in order to make sure that what we are pulling out and presenting to the public after this is something that is profound. People who watch the news a lot and spend so much time on social media are being programmed.
I agree.
They're programmed to behave in a particular direction, in a particular way, and all of that. And I keep saying that you cannot lead in your generation if you think, act, and behave the same way your generation is behaving. And I even have one of the things on how a framework on how to lead in your generation, and that was based on what did these guys do. For example, I read a book on the top 100, people in various centuries. What did they do different? What was their character, their mindset, their behaviors? What kind of projects did they do? What kind of people did they collaborate with, and all of that? Because if they were able to stand out in their generation, there is a way of thinking. For example, Elon Musk is standing out now because that guy is not thinking global, he's thinking galactic. There's a kind of mindset that he has. What gives him the audacity to think that he can take people from Earth to another planet? That's galactic thinking. So there is a way he sees the world, and there's a way he looks at the world. And there's a way that we can learn from his galactic thinking, although we are not there, and contextualize it. And somebody, a young guy in an urban area, semi-urban area, can be able to understand that way of thinking. His may not be galactic thinking, but he can use the concept. And instead of seeing himself in the local environment, he can tap into his skills and be able to see that, hey, where I am does not define me, but there's a way that I can think and create value and package value and distribute it in a way that it will take me from here to being a leader in my region or in my continent or what have you. So that was the perspective of the kind of things I was spending time and learning and researching, asking questions with the people I was able to relate with and talk to in that particular light. Yeah.
Let's talk about something that's very close to my heart, and I think that is a very big trend right now: the rise of personal brands.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at what's happening, personal brands seem to think that they seem to be the thing that's taking over in 2025. And I want you to talk about it from the perspective of the entrepreneur
Yeah.
and the perspective of the professional. It's everywhere. Look at Mark Zuckerberg. You can see clearly that there is a deliberate move on the kind of videos he's posting on his personal profile to show his family side, to show the side that makes him more human. People complained he was too stiff, he was this, and now, and by the way, hats off to whoever is doing that. There's somebody with a strategic plan, and then he goes right to the core of what does he do? His wife's, I think it's a birthday or something. He does an entire celebration. And you're looking at it, you're like, Mark Zuckerberg can get on stage and try to sing and ad lib and try to do all that for his own man. Oh, wow. It makes you now relatable. If you look at the videos of, is it Judicial? I've forgotten how the thing is pronounced.
Yeah.
He's doing some karate lessons and all of that. And it makes it everybody who goes, oh, wow. That's a
Yeah.
billionaire just rubbing himself on the floor, right? But if you think about it from the broader perspective, there's lots of people, there's a rise of personal brands. And this, I think, for the next 10 years is going to take over the people
Mhm.
who build personal brands. And they must not necessarily be personal brands with 1,000, with 1 million followers, but
Yeah.
brands with us at least 5,000 followers. If you know what you're doing, if you know that you're creating the right content, you're doing the right thing. To talk to us about the rise of personal brands and how you think that we as youths, professionals, as well as entrepreneurs should start to place themselves and place their brands to be able to benefit from this trend.
You see, if you want to see the power of personal brand, one person you can study who plays the game so well at a very high level too is, of course, Elon Musk, right? And that's what he did to contribute to Trump's presidency
It's true.
and all of that. So, um, and he understood, and that's why he bought Twitter, right? He bought X for that particular reason. Personal brand is one of those things, like I said, if you bring Adam Smith to rewrite his book, social media or new media influence personal brand, all of those brought together will be a major, major factor of production because there are people making millions now just based on personal brand and what they've built on their social media and just doing funny things here and there in order to do that. However, there is also a serious misconception about personal brand, especially for even the older generation and younger people, in terms of thinking that personal brand is about popularity. It's about how many likes that you get, or how many comments that you get, or how many views that you get. If you want to measure the strength of your personal brand, one of the easiest ways to measure is what percentage of that population can you always convert into buying anything of value that you sell? Now, that is where you really measure the strength of your personal brand because anything called a brand must influence somebody. It must influence either how they think, it must influence their belief system, it must influence their daily life, it influences how they live, how they eat, how they sleep, how they how they hang out. A personal brand must be able to do one of these. So if your personal brand is not, doing that in a particular way, you see, there are people that call themselves influencers, but they're just popular people because there are some brands, for example, like comedy. You see, a comedian who is not constantly creating comedy content will die out, right? But you see, I've not been on social media, for example, I've been on social media for over a year, and there are people who still used to try to send me emails for coaching calls and consulting calls. Meanwhile, I'm not posting, right? So there's a difference with all that, but there's a way that a comedian can be able to step up from just being popular to being a personal brand. And there are a few of them who have really gotten it right to a certain extent, which you can see that it's working for them because when you really have a personal brand as a comedian, for example, you can influence the corporate setting in a particular way because they are bringing you to the table not because you're popular, but because you have something beyond popularity that they can bank on to also add to their own brand and create a new kind of vibe for their people. So people need to take it a step further. Like I made a controversial post on LinkedIn because I'm back on LinkedIn earlier on before other social media platforms. And I made a post on LinkedIn and I said, in 2016 or 17, I used to coach people on LinkedIn optimization. Now it's a big thing on LinkedIn, but I used to do it then. And then I stopped doing it because I anticipated that the most easiest job on LinkedIn would be LinkedIn coaches. So now on LinkedIn, anybody who can be able to generate 1,000 followers and above and is able to know how to optimize their LinkedIn profile becomes automatically a LinkedIn coach. And many of them now call themselves brand people, brand experts, brand strategists, right? But branding is beyond optimizing a platform. It is the ability to use a platform. So your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook profile, TikTok, whatever, is not your brand. It's a distribution channel for your brand. So your LinkedIn, your TikTok, your Facebook is your front office. That you now bring your brand from the back office to now present it on your front office, and people can understand what you create behind the scenes using your technical skills. So now we have so many superficial people at the back end there are not technical skills. Anybody who has a strong brand has a combination of technical skills behind the scene, and they use the various platforms as the front office in communicating their technical skills, because technical skills need to be presented in a way that, or in the English format that somebody can understand and pay for it. Like I said, because value that is not understood is either underlooked or overlooked or misunderstood in general, and then people cannot pay for it. So with branding, many people have what people call branding now. They're focusing on the front office. That's why people go to a certain extent to rent a car to look good, or people in most African countries right now, even in the United States, who rent Airbnb and all of that, and they snap pictures on an Airbnb to maintain a particular lifestyle. But that's not influence. That's just sharing vibes. But you begin to build influence if you can always use your technical skills that you have built in any area. It could just be that you have become such a good mom at raising kids that you can begin to go back to your experience and begin to do what I call skills assessment and assess, okay, what did I do so well that I can really define as technical skills, and how can I begin to communicate it in the form of content and videos and storytelling that it can influence other mothers or early mothers or first time mothers to become better mothers, because there's a way I did it and my practical experience is so relevant that I can project it now on the platform. So there is a lot of projection and the back end is empty. And that's why there are so many noisy brands and they may not be there in the next 5 years. So we keep having new brands rising and going out, what they call the wheels of retailing in business. We're going to have wheels of branding, right? Rise and fall of brands, rise and fall of brand, because the back end takes a lot of hard work and it's not comfortable. Reading books, following courses, analyzing, questioning things before you create your own and bring to the front end, it becomes easy. So there's that discrepancy that I'm seeing, and I'm believing that people can balance the two. The brand that will stand the test of time is balance the two, and then master the art of creating communities that can come to you and you can work with them. Be a person that can build a community. And that's why I keep saying that where we are going with branding, people without the ability to lead people will not have good brands, because the most powerful people with strong brands are people who can own a community. You own a good email list, a good, a Telegram community, or what have you community, and there's a way you lead them and you serve them with exceptional value that they have no choice than to keep feeding from you and keep benefiting from you and collaborating with you and you with them, and you guys keep building. Yeah.
Totally agree, because I think that that's the route that the world is going towards. If you were to give someone some words of wisdom right now, let's say that they're somewhere trying to build themselves, they have no personal brand, they have nothing, they're trying to pick up their lives. How do you think that kind of a person should pick up themselves moving forward?
One of the most important things that anybody who is starting can do is to start by being first. When you start by being, becoming becomes easy. You see, I always fondly say that personally for me, I stumbled on speaking and training and coaching. I stumbled on being somebody that people can come to, or corporate companies can come to as a thought leader. I stumbled on it. I didn't know that there was something like that, because I was born in the village and came to a semi-urban area in this small little town called Kumbo, the second chief town in the northwest region of Cameroon. And at that time, we used to ration electricity maybe 2 hours every day. The internet was at bare minimum at the time. You need to go to a cyber cafe. So I have no reason in terms of where I'm coming from to be where I am, right? When you focus on just being, just focus on becoming, because there is a way you become, because God designed this life for us to attract, not for us to chase. Many people are chasing what they should be attracting, and you only attract when you become. So, first responsibility is, how do you become? I always encourage people, create a learning project for yourself. What are the various thought patterns, character patterns, soft skills, and hard skills that you need to become in? With social media, when you become and you're able to have the boldness, I'm saying that intentionally because there are people that have become, but fear is keeping them in the same spot, or they want to start perfect. Meanwhile, nobody ever started anything perfect on earth. People who builders and momentum movers are people who started imperfect and they perfected in the process. So that's why I always say that until you're willing to be publicly embarrassed, you're not ready to be a builder. Everybody who built and is still building now, look, one thing you'll find as a pattern in their lives is they were ready to be publicly embarrassed. And that would not stop them from keep building because they know that public embarrassment is feedback for better product design. So they don't get angry at it. They use it as feedback to build something better. So anywhere you are, focus on becoming, focus on being. And when you keep on becoming, the second thing is create a structure that you can always acquire new knowledge. Like I always say that new knowledge reduces suffering and increases your success.
Put
And so
yourself in those communities.
exactly, if you're able to be in a community or have a system that you buy a particular book about the industry or whatever, but create a structure around you that's one thing that really I think is one of my most important.
Superpowers.
Yes. I have a very, very intentional system that I must acquire new knowledge every month,
Love it.
or a body of knowledge, not just one tata thing. No, there's a system around me that I know that before the month ends, there is a body of knowledge that comes and I can use it and synthesize and improve what I'm building. So when you're able to do that and you're willing to keep on experimenting and testing and improving and serving, you always keep on rising, right? Anybody at any stage in life, any location, I would say if you have a smartphone and internet, have 10 times chances of succeeding faster than anybody 50 years ago.
What I always say is, and I used to speak to a couple of friends who reach out to me and I break it to them in the simplest of ways. And I say to them, here's what I want you to do, right? Take a pen and paper and go and write down the different areas of your life where you think you need help and write down one skill and start to work on it. I'll give you a very basic practical example. Number one, communication. Communication is the one thing where you can never go wrong. No matter when you learn that, I promise you, communication has put me into rooms that I didn't ever know I'll ever step into because I could be able to just take my one thought, articulate it in the right way, and tweak it to what they were asking. Even if the only thing I did was pick this bottle and move to the right, and they asked me, how do you do this? I go, I saw the bottle seated there and I took initiative and thought about it, knowing that if this bottle stays, it's going to cause a nuisance to this. And so I took the bottle and then I put it, and the person goes, oh, wow. So you didn't just carry the bottle and put to the right. You actually thought about it and you were proactive. Now, okay, you're the right person for this because I communicated just taking out that bottle. So I always say to people, what you should do is go, let's say, personal skills, right? Personal development skills. I want to learn communication. Write that down. I go to my health. What do I want to do with my health? Okay. For me, a couple of years back, I decided because health is important and everything I build, family, every other thing rise and fall on health. I said to myself, if I can't go to the gym regularly because of my schedule, I'm going to play football once every week. And I've done that for probably the last 4 years. Sometimes, to be honest, sometimes I miss out on the days. But every Monday, I'd go out and I play football. And I'd say to myself, you have to incorporate that into your system. And then let's talk about spirituality. What's the first step with my spirituality? If I travel somewhere, if I stay in any city, I find a church and I make sure that regardless of what's happening every week, I have to step into church once at least, no matter how busy the schedule is. And also considering the fact that I'm no longer in an African continent, there's lots of things taking your time. I know for those in Cameroon and elsewhere, it will be different. You have to be in church every day. That's different. But what I'm trying to say is I incorporate that into the system. So I look at my spiritual life and incorporate one thing. I go to my communication and my personal development and incorporate one thing, which is my communication. I go to my health, I optimize one thing. Now, if you look at it at the end of the year, because I've been working on these 3, 4, 5 things simultaneously, I've built myself. And then when you talked about, let me just very fast, when you talked about creating a system of intentionality, I say to you, some of the friends that I share with, it's very basic. Number one, start by going on your social media and follow just the people you want to learn from. I love Russell Brunson. I would literally follow him on every single platform because I'm just obsessed with who he is as a person, his
Yeah.
values, his Christian values, how he loves his wife, how he builds his family, how he builds his business. I want to be obsessed with him. I mean, all his email lists, I'm following him on every social media. So that way, and then I learned something from Russell. He talked about the Dream 100. The idea
Mhm.
about the Dream 100 from Russell Brunson was you look at the top 100 people in your space that maybe you want to be like or you want to learn from them, and then you start to chase them and learn from them. So what
Yeah.
do I do with that Dream 100? For me, I even narrowed it down to Dream 10. Go on every social media and follow my top 10 people. That way, when I'm bored doing, which I mean, I wouldn't say I'm bored, but when I pick up my phone and I go to Facebook, what
Mhm.
do I see? My Dream 10.
Exactly.
Now their feed is somebody's doing something, somebody's probably posting something. I go, oh jeez, I could tweak this to what I want to do. I
Mhm.
could tweak this to what I'm doing. Sometimes you're just reading someone and reading something of someone, and before you realize you're already thinking about ideas. So you've intentionally surrounded yourself with that. And I think that when you share that, I totally relate because it's something that I am obsessed about. What I
Yeah.
get into their email is you see an email pop in, I read from them. I read all your emails, even the one you send this morning. This what is morning or afternoon. I read it until I think there was one time I was like, how is he sending so many emails? What platform is he using? I went, okay, I went to check it. Then I'm not going to tell everyone. I went, like, okay, this is what he's using. Okay, okay. I was curious. I'll check that. So I think that putting yourself in that space and what you say is it's so
Yeah.
important.
Okay, it's very important. Like, for example, one of the things I like to do, my wife and even my mentees, because I'm very close people I mentor a lot at a very close range. One of the things I know about me is that I treat my life in seasons. And as a spiritual person, as a believer, I always like to make sure that God, what this season I'm in now, what is the purpose of this season? And one of the first, you may not see the content, but it's my private weapon, so you don't need to see it. But you don't need to see it. But one of the first things you can see on my on my notepad is must do this season, right? Must do this season. So there are things for this season. There are four things that I must do every day. It's a law, and that season can then shift. And when it shifts, I update this list. So I have a must do this season list.
Mm,
And sometimes it could be that okay, I need to learn this. And I'll add it here, okay, for this season, every day you have to watch one a video or training from these top two experts on this particular topic that you need to grow in.
yeah.
You see, so and this changed me a lot. So I know that my day is not permitted to end if I have not done the things on my must do this season. And this excludes my normal daily to do list. But there is a must do this season list that I have, maximum four things. Because I understand that if I will maximize this season of my life, then these things are critical for me to keep doing them. And
Mm.
that's what builds life. The most easiest thing, should I say the most easiest thing? It's going to sound controversial. The most easiest thing to make is money.
Tell me how to make more.
Is do you understand who you need to become so money can follow you? That is it. Because there is something you're in media. There is a dimension of media you become so good at that money has no choice in that particular industry to run
But to
towards.
rotate around you.
Opportunities and platforms, they have no option than to run towards you. But you see that process of becoming is what separates the elite from the masses. Because for many people, the discipline is not there.
There is a school of thought, and I think I'm increasingly growing to become one of those persons. I talked about this last year, talked about it openly that I took a day job. And I'm sure lots of people were like, why are you doing that? First off, I moved to a new country, which is a different currency. I needed to get myself embraced with what was happening.
Mhm.
But I can't lie. That literally changed. It was probably one of the first jobs I ever did in my life because I never actually had a real job.
Yeah.
Never really sat down somewhere and really answered somebody, but I literally took up a job. And after I think I took one or two other jobs, and I think that the perspective really did help me just being in that space. And one of the roles actually surprisingly was for a company that did I think $1 million every month or something. And I was just there watching. I was just like, "Jeez, look at this people system. Look at what are we doing?" And it was insane. And it the process taught me a lot. But I wanted you to talk to me about your perspective around that, where some entrepreneurs probably think that taking a job would be is either belittling your skills. How would you approach that, and what do you think could be at least the right mindset for people to have when it comes to taking jobs? For me, I've talked about mine openly. I think that it's something that everyone should do at some point. At least go work a job, be answerable to someone. It's even going to help you. Maybe shed more light. I might not be asking the question directly, but shed more light on it. I think you might understand where I'm going.
Taking a job for entrepreneurs has a lot of benefits from different angles. There's a research I was reading, I've forgotten the exact numbers, but that research proved that entrepreneurs who once worked before building their businesses succeed faster than those who did not. Because for those who worked, they will not assume certain systems and structures. They will build their entrepreneurial systems and structures and policies from based on where they're coming from. And you don't have a business if there's no structure and system in it. For example, for us believers, when you were talking, I just felt like, oh, maybe God is preparing him for the bigger company he wants to now build, really. Because God is like, okay, Arrey, you have been building good, but you have been self-employed, thinking that you run a business. Maybe now is the time that you're really going to become an executive who owns a company, and you need to go into another company who they have more money than you, more experts than you, and while you're serving them, you are seeing how they're doing it, and there are some things you can just copy, paste, and improve based on where you're going to and what you're building. For example, I always say that one of the best things that helped me in my entrepreneurial journey was the first, I don't know if it's a job or a sales job, but it's the same. I did DS Max, right? Door to door. The resilience and the courage that direct sales teaches you, there is no book on earth that can teach you. You see, already if I'm knocking doors of offices now to pitch an idea, I'm not scared of any no. And it is that experience in 2009 that gave me that courage. Because there was a week that, because you leave the office at 9 a.m. and come back at 4 p.m. I went out 3 days straight. I was not able to sell even a roulon for 500 francs, less than $1, for 3 days. Do you know what it means to carry a bag of products, move door to door in Boya under the sun, and you don't sell 500 francs? The kind of no's that you receive and the kind of slangs that you get in doing direct sales, there is no book that can teach you that. So it built something in me that no book of entrepreneurship can teach me. You see, same as my first earlier jobs as a finance person in a microfinance, all of that. There are things that, it taught me. So, you see, getting a job is not a curse. It's not bad news. It's not as if even those who are, for example, there was a lot of talk from, several excited, inspirational and motivational speakers. And there were most of those who are talking about network marketing and those guys at that particular level. And they were saying that, your salary is what they pay you to forget your dreams. And there was a time that I even led a long discussion on Facebook and saying that your salary is the seed they're giving you to build your dream business. It's just perspective, because there are people that have saved from their salary, used it as a seed, and they've started amazing side hustles that have become businesses. The difference is perspective, right? So you can go there to get a seed, or you can go there to get experience, or you can hit rock bottom as an entrepreneur. I know a friend from South Africa. He hit rock bottom. Everything he built collapsed. He had to go back to the banking sector he left, because that is where he has to start from. And there's nothing wrong starting over.
What do you think about those traveling abroad? There's a wild discussion about it, and talk to me about that perspective. Maybe your perspective on it. You as somebody who has also traveled several countries, and now for this season of your life, based in another country, and would probably move again. Tell me.
I used to say, I wrote it down in my diary somewhere years ago, that there will be a season in my life where I will leave Africa and go to a developed country for the sake of research and study before I come back. But I didn't know when it was going to happen and how that would happen, because when I wrote that down, I wrote by faith, because I think I was very, very broke by then. I didn't know what it means to pay a flight ticket to any country. But I knew that there will be that season of my life that there is something. When I look at the way the guys in Europe and North America and Asia and Australia, the way they play this game, that of that week that I am in my industry, there is something we don't know, right? So I had that in my plan. But my perspective about traveling is kind of broad in the sense that when you talk to people and you hear where they're coming from, they have a valid reason for leaving different countries, especially, Cameroon and Nigeria, especially these two countries, because I don't want to go further, but it's terrible, right? But my challenge for many people traveling is traveling to survive, not seeing it as a window to the world. A gifted person can be lost in the UK for 15 years, 20 years, because they settled for survival instead of seeing the UK as a window to shine globally at whatever level. You see, same for those in Canada, America, China, wherever. My encouragement for anybody who wants to travel is don't have the perspective that you want to leave your country so you can find another country to survive. It gives you a window to the world that your country could not give you, and you can use it now to give back to the country. Is it going to be easy for you to leverage on that window? No, because the first few years you're struggling to settle down. And nobody gets it right the first year because another new country is a whole ball game for anybody, except you have a rich family that have so much money that when you get there, you buy a house, everything is on point for you. You're not working from ground up as most people. But my encouragement is that see any developed country you go to as a stepping stone for you to shine bigger, especially if you have ever had a dream of being somebody who is beyond just having a job, having a house, having a car. See it as a window and then plot a blueprint, a global expansion blueprint for your career. Plot something and aim for it. Many people will be surprised at how many doors will begin to open. You know why? Because this generation also, very lazy generation. Many people are very comfortable easily. Anybody who can just put in a little extra work will easily stand out in this generation. I mean, significant work, not work on posting on social media. Anybody can do that. But the kind of work that if you're so committed that you go to a new country, you create something in the community, you are bold to do things that an average person will not do. You see, me, when I go to any country, one of the first things I do is I look for the email of the mayor, whoever, and I send an email. I prefer to be rejected. I am not settling for less. I'll send, if it's the United States, I'll send a message to the governor, an email. Congressperson, I'll find it, I'll send it. Because you'll be surprised at how some doors can begin to open for you when you begin to knock those kind of doors. So my encouragement is that as an African, if you immigrate to any country, don't see it as you have finally survived out of danger zone and now you can settle. It's going to steal a lot from you. Take that same energy you had in Africa and bring it here and build something bigger. And that's why, there's a research that immigrants are one of the fastest rising millionaires in the United States.
Yeah,
Because
right.
they feel that when they come, they see the US as a window to more opportunities. They keep on rising and they keep on growing in that particular line. So that's always my encouragement. And then have that intentionality to give back home. Africa is still the home. Have that intentionality to give back home, sponsor a kid, give back to your school where you went to, do something that you can give back home to people who are not able to live like you did.
Totally agree. I want us to go through this very, very fast. Number one, how's marriage life? And what would you say has been some of the experiences so far?
Marriage life is good, good, good. It's one of those seasons also that I and my wife and I, we have been tested, in terms of being a couple, in terms of how do we handle challenges and difficulties together as a team, as a couple, because especially me as a man who has been an entrepreneur for as long as I can remember, I am a bulldozer. Problem comes, I face it, I sort it out. If I cannot sort it out, I keep moving. I don't care what you are. Right? But now there is family at play, there is the wife in the process. So things get to be a bit different. There are some things you could ignore and laugh at it and say, come on, you fix yourself. Life must keep on going. Because one thing that makes entrepreneurs is momentum. The day you lose it, you lose your entrepreneurial edge. You need to keep on moving no matter what happens. So, but it has been a lot of a learning curve for me, and hopefully for my wife too. But she is the most amazing gift that I've ever received. I will tell her that one of the best gifts that God gave me was to send her into my life. It will reveal your real manhood to you. You will know whether you're truly a man. Yeah.
1000%. I think that's it. Even just, I mean, for those who have been in real committed relationships as well, sometimes it will, well, I wanted to put it in a biased way. The women will test your Christianity, but on the other side as well, you two will test their own Christianity.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
these relationships bring out some of the.
Mhm.
I have honestly, I mean, in all honesty, I've behaved in some certain ways that I scolded and I went, geez, where does this, oh my God, where does this come from? Is this
Exactly.
me?
Exactly.
And then I go, wow, that's not me. Did I have that in
Yeah.
me? Was
Yeah.
I this insecure? Was I this naive in this way? And then I had to call myself back. And so relationships have a fine way of
Yeah.
revealing, helping you
Finding, yeah,
soul
revealing,
search. Yeah.
finding, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it helps to build you. And
Yeah.
that's why some people will ask questions about why must only married people hold some certain positions? Yes, because you've governed the first unit.
People don't know that.
You've
Uh,
governed
how-
the first unit. Then I think about the things that I have to hand down to my children. And I go, okay, what are those things I have to hand down to my kids? And I have to start to make sure that those values, I have built them for myself. For
Exactly.
example, my kid is not going to walk in and just go, hey, they want to be this tomorrow because you feel that you can be that.
Mhm.
First off, I'm going to train you the right way. Wait, even by the time you want to open your mouth, tell me that thing.
Let me cut it short there. You see that statement you made?
Mhm,
That statement you made about your kid walking in and just saying, this is what I want to be.
mhm,
Uh, and I studied the rich and the most wealthiest families.
mhm.
One of the biggest things I learned, their kids don't decide what they want to be.
Oh my God.
That is for the masses. That's why the rich stay richer. There's a way they program the masses and the people to see that some things are big star. You would never. Who tell you? We don't do that in this family. Oh. That's what they will tell you. No, before you are born, you are when we saw you as a girl, we already programmed you. We programmed you and your entire destiny into this empire. And if you want to walk out of it, they cut you off. They don't think twice.
I was having this conversation with my friends. It's interesting that you said that just last 2 weeks ago, I would say 2 weeks ago. And I said to them, my kid would not decide what they will be. I would decide for my kid. And here's my thought process. As we start to grow up, we experience life differently, right?
Mhm.
And you see lots of people, for example, I'll give a general idea. Here in the UK, lots of people grow up and now they're doing care. And everybody you talk to somebody who is doing care, they go, oh my God, I'm doing this shitty job. I don't want to do it. I'm just doing it to survive. I understand. I'm not trying to shit on the job, of course.
Mhm.
That's a bit it it's a
Mhm.
it's a job on its own. But the point I'm trying to make is for my kid, you know, go can't tell me nothing this way you want to do. I'm going to hold your hand. If whatever thing I'm doing at that time, it is the family business, I will throw you into it. When you make the first $1 million and you come and say to me, Daddy, I want to be a doctor, I want to go back and start from square one. Okay, you've made the first $1 million, you've tested how it is, and you know what it means to make that good money. If you want to go back to being that, okay,
Yeah.
you get my point? Because regardless,
Yeah.
I want you to make the money and be frowning that
Yeah.
you're not happy with the job
Exactly.
rather than me letting you decide and then 10 years down the line, you're
And
working
it's
some
not
job and
always
you're going
just
like this.
exciting. Like I said, if you look at the way the rich and the elite, there is a school for the poor and there's a school for the rich, and people don't know that. There's a way that the upper class raise their kids. There's a way they think.
Hmm.
There's a way they look at it. So you don't come, you don't come. And I followed a rich man's. Do you know that there are so many rich families that they don't have Netflix in their houses and they don't watch CNN and BBC
Hmm.
because they believe that it's a media that they use to program the middle class and the lower class. So they don't watch it so they can program themselves to rule the middle class and the lower class. And there's a way they raise their kids. For example, you spoke about doing the care job. So even if you like to care for people and all of that, the school of the poor, they think of doing the work. But a rich kid who has been taught by the dad would
Ownership.
think of, how can I own it? How can I gather 5 people who want to survive as care nurses and create an institution and recruit them? And that's why this in the school of the rich, there is a level that you develop hard skills. And then there's a second level of hard skills, which is between hard and soft skills, which is, for example, persuasion, negotiation, how to spot deals and how to negotiate deals and all of that. So a kid from a rich family thinks like this. Okay, I cannot do the care myself because that's not my level. So how can I use my skills in leadership, negotiation, all of that, and get the guys who are comfortable at doing the hard work? That one is sorted out. How can I craft my business without capital, register it, all of that, and go to companies and pitch it and get contracts and get 50% upfront payment, come and pay these guys and get employees and go do the job and get paid. But you see how this sounds so simple? People in the school of the poor and the middle class, it sounds like quantum physics in their minds because the programming from childhood doesn't permit them to look at it that way or to understand it at that particular level.
I think that if we talk about this, and it is the exact same reason, and I want to round this off, but I think this is so important for us to say it. It's the exact same reason why my mindset has changed, and I will do my best to send my kids to the best schools.
Arrey, one of the best things you can give your kid is to make sure your kid get to the most expensive school ever. It's not the education, it's the network.
It's the environment.
That is why there are many poor kids that their parents did their best to get to the richest schools. It was a shortcut to the elite class because their classmates now were forced to give them offers and pull them up. They left lower class, skipped middle class, and went straight to the upper class. I can give you story after story. If you are in the middle class, work your ass off and get your kid into a school that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because your curriculum doesn't make people. It is the people that they meet in those places that is a prime minister's son, is a politician's son, governor's son, whatever son. Those people that they meet, that their destiny is already programmed for the next 10 years. They're not thinking of how to get a job. I know a guy that he now runs one of the fastest growing venture capitalists from a poor family, but he runs a multi-million-dollar venture capital fund now. You know what he did? He went to that kind of school. These guys have millions here and there. He sold them the idea. And then the guys went to the bank accounts and brought money and gave him the settle the venture capital. He skipped the lower class and now operates from the middle class or from the upper class. And the best gift we can give our kids is not to save money and put them in the school of the poor. Gets them to attend the school of the rich. And if you can do it, do it. If you can sell a land, sell it. But that's one of the best things you can give your kid. Will it be hard for some people? Yes. But will it be worth it?
Yeah.
It will be worth it.
Lots of people have missed you online, and with your new coming. By the way, when are you coming back fully to social media?
When you post the video, I will show up, especially on Facebook and Instagram. So,
what's going to be your last word to, at least to the people who have missed you online? What should they expect to see from you as you get back?
Well, let them watch and see.
And the last question we always ask all the people, all the guests on the podcast. The last time you were here, you didn't answer this question. I don't think we had asked it at the time. But when all is said and done, how do you want to be remembered as Javnyuy Joybert?
You see, I discovered years ago that I had a teaching grace and a teaching anointing. And by some kind of grace and this gift that God has so graciously, mercifully trusted me with, people have been able to build amazing businesses and amazing lives. Even elderly people at the age of 40, 50, older than me, from what I get to share. So I want to be remembered as somebody who shared and shared and shared and build as many dreams and visions as possible. I used to have a funny silent goal. It has improved. Let me share with you so you understand how I used to think. But the funny silent goal I wrote somewhere that in Cameroon, in the next 20 years, I want that 30% of the top companies in Cameroon will be owned by people that have passed through me, either as mentees or through my 1 year training programs or different things that I run. That's one of my major long-term visions. That if you come and say these are the top 100 multi-million dollar companies annually, out of those, 30 are people that call me mentor.
That's so huge.
Right now, I have incredible guys that have been mentored, like who call me. That's when I say you call me a mentor. Those are guys that sometimes, when I say no, they make a U-turn immediately. There's one of them who traveled somewhere and just called me to be excited. And like, hey boss, I'm here. And I, oh nice. What do you got to do there? A friend just asked me to come and check something. And I asked, was it in your to-do list for the month? He said no. So where you are right now, just make a U-turn back to your office. He stayed quiet for a few seconds. I heard him tell the friend, he went with a car. He said, I'm going back now to Douala. And then he left. So I'm giving you an example of how much I want to give out and build, especially people that they willfully come and say, I want you to mentor me, to teach me. There's a way I just see things. There's a way I can just spot, like if I talk with you already, it's just a way I can just spot that the way Arrey sounds, the way he thinks. In 10 years, he'll get here. And if he knows this, and this, he will never fail in life. I just always just, and I've seen it work over the years, in the last 5 years and 10 years with the people I've coached, mentored, and so on. Right. So I just want to die empty and leave nothing and raise as many vision bearers and territory takers as much as possible at a very fast pace. One of the things I've been obsessed with lately is how can I help people achieve so much at a faster pace? What others could take 10 years, like what our parents could take 10 years in the last 20 years, based on the resources and equipments now, how can we achieve the same in 5 years? It's one of my recent obsessions, right? And that's what I want to do. So there's so much we can build as a people, as a community, as mentees, and create significant wealth and contribute to the lives of other people in such a profound way that nobody can remain the same. So I want to die so empty, but there'll be so many proofs. There are so many now already, but and there's so many, I give so many stories of those started from nothing. They now have institutions with their staffs here and there, different countries, and doing so well. But I want so many of those proofs scattered here and there.
Awesome, man. I want to thank you very much for your time and for sharing, and also for at least making the comeback on the podcast. Of course, when this goes hard, that means that you should be back fully on social media. So thank you. And I really do appreciate you. Sometimes speaking to you, just it reignites something. It's that moment for me to affirm some of the thoughts I have in my mind, because when you mentioned them, like, oh yeah, so this means I was thinking in the right way. And it just makes a lot of sense to speak to someone who you feel can relate to some of the things you're talking about, where you're going. Sometimes, I mean, you know it. Sometimes you're in a space where you share stuff and you feel like people don't get it. But when I say something and then you answer, I go, oh wow, okay. Now we are on the same frequency, and that I really do appreciate that in the conversation. Thank you. I appreciate you for doing this.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's always a good time chatting with you. And of course, looking forward to another time again. So hopefully it's gonna pop up.
Yeah. If you just enjoyed this episode, the chances are that you're going to enjoy other amazing episodes that we've recorded, so you can check that out somewhere around this video. Before you go, please make sure you check our 3 boxes. First things first, please make sure to hit the subscribe or the follow button down below, because the more we grow, the bigger guests we can approach on this platform and the more value we can bring to you here on the podcast. Second, a lot of friends always reach out to me and say something like, hey Arrey, I really did enjoy this particular segment of this episode. Pick up your phone and send this to a friend and say, hey, check this out between 10 to 15 minutes. There's something very important I'd love you to see. Number 3, please make sure to check out the links in the description for very helpful resources. So before you go, please make sure to tick those 3 boxes. Like I always say, my friends, cheers to many more years of shamelessly living and crazily excelling in passion and purpose. And I'll speak to you in the next episode.